Welcome back to Family Wealth Detective. I'm your detective, and today we're opening Case File 47, a devastating example of how a trusted family member can systematically steal $85,400 from an elderly relative's pension while the entire family watches it happen. This isn't just another financial crime story. This is a masterclass in psychological manipulation that destroyed a Milwaukee family and could be happening in your family right now. By the time we close this case file today, you'll know exactly how to recognize the warning signs that this family missed, the 3 legal protections that could have prevented this theft entirely, and why your elderly parents might be more vulnerable than you think. Case file number 047, the Torres family, financial exploitation, location, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Victim, Vincent Torres, age 78, retired educator. Perpetrator, Damien Reeves, age 45, victim's nephew. Total financial loss, $85,400, over 16 months. Legal outcome, felony conviction, 4 years imprisonment, full restitution ordered, classification, elder financial abuse with power of attorney fraud. Here's what makes this case particularly dangerous for families like yours. Damien Reeves wasn't a stranger who targeted Vincent Torres through a phone scam or fake lottery. He was family, a nephew who had eaten Thanksgiving dinner at Vincent's table for decades. Someone Vincent had helped through difficult times, someone Vincent trusted completely. And that trust became the weapon that Damien used to steal over $85,000 from Vincent's retirement pension, money that was supposed to ensure Vincent's dignity and security in his final years. As your family wealth detective, I've analyzed over 200 cases of family financial betrayal, and I can tell you this: the Vincent Torres case represents a perfect example of vulnerability factors that exist in thousands of American families right now. Recent widowhood, geographic separation of protective family members, an elderly person maintaining independence while needing occasional help, and a financially desperate relative with time, access, and opportunity. But here's what sets this case apart and makes it essential learning for every family: the systematic nature of Damien's theft, the sophisticated psychological manipulation he employed, and most importantly, the clear warning signs that could have prevented this devastating financial crime. Vincent Torres worked for 35 years as a teacher in the Milwaukee Public School District. He was the kind of educator who stayed late to help struggling students, who spent his own money on classroom supplies, who believed in the power of education to transform lives. When he retired, his pension provided $3,200 monthly, not wealth but dignity. Enough to maintain his home, pay his bills, and occasionally help his adult children during tough times. Vincent's wife Maria had died in early 2022, leaving him alone in the house they'd shared for 40 years. At 78, Vincent was managing well, but the transition from married life to widowhood created vulnerabilities that his nephew Damien would exploit with calculating precision. Damien Reeves was facing his own crisis. A recent divorce had left him financially strained, emotionally damaged, and searching for what he called a fresh start. Unlike Vincent's other relatives, who lived busy lives managing careers and young families, Damien had something precious in the world of elder financial abuse: unlimited time and easy access. And that combination, Vincent's vulnerability and Damien's desperation, created the perfect conditions for what would become one of the most systematic cases of family financial exploitation I've ever investigated. Now, before we dive deep into how Damien managed to steal over $85,000 while Vincent's family watched it happen, I need you to understand something crucial about elder financial abuse. This isn't a crime that happens to other people. According to the National Adult Protective Services Association, financial abuse affects 1 in 10 Americans aged 60 and older, with family members responsible for over 60% of reported cases. The average loss? $120,000 per victim. But the emotional damage? That's incalculable. If you're watching this because you have elderly parents, if you're managing family finances, or if you're concerned about protecting your family's wealth from internal threats, I need you to subscribe to this channel right now and drop your location in the comments. This education could save your family thousands of dollars and years of heartbreak. Because what happened to Vincent Torres wasn't just a crime, it was a systematic betrayal that follows patterns you can learn to recognize and prevent. And by the end of this case analysis, you'll have 3 specific legal protections that could prevent this exact scenario from happening in your family. But first, we need to understand how a trusted nephew convinced an entire family that he was Vincent's protector while he was actually his predator. The investigation into Damien's crimes revealed a sophisticated 3-phase operation: trust building and dependency creation, information control and family isolation, and finally, legal authority seizure and systematic theft. Each phase built on the previous one, creating what forensic psychologists call a dependency trap, where the victim becomes so reliant on their abuser that they defend them even after the abuse is discovered. This case established important legal precedents in Wisconsin elder abuse law, particularly regarding power of attorney fraud and the responsibilities of financial institutions to detect and report suspicious activity involving elderly account holders. The district attorney who prosecuted this case called it a textbook example of how family financial predators operate, which makes it perfect for our educational analysis. Damien's conviction on felony charges of financial exploitation of an elderly person resulted in a 4-year prison sentence and a restitution order for the full $85,400. But as we'll see, recovering stolen money from family financial crimes is far more complex than simply ordering repayment. The ripple effects of Damien's betrayal extended far beyond the financial loss. Vincent's trust in family relationships was shattered. Vincent's sister Margaret, Damien's mother, felt such shame about her son's actions that she moved to Florida and cut contact with the entire Milwaukee side of the family. And most tragically, Vincent spent his remaining years questioning his own judgment and feeling foolish for trusting someone he loved. This is why understanding the Torres case is so critical. It's not just about the money. It's about preserving family relationships, protecting elderly dignity, and ensuring that your loved ones can age with the security they've earned. So, let's begin our investigation. We'll start with the psychological dynamics that made Vincent vulnerable, examine the warning signs that the family missed, and then walk through each phase of Damien's criminal operation. By the time we close this case file, you'll be equipped to protect your family from this devastating crime. To understand how Damien Reeves managed to steal $85,400 from his uncle without detection for over 16 months, we need to examine the psychological landscape that made this crime possible. The Torres family dynamics reveal classic vulnerability patterns that financial predators instinctively recognize and exploit. Vincent Torres, in early 2023, presented what forensic psychologists call a perfect target profile for family financial abuse. Recent widowhood had disrupted his established decision-making patterns. After 43 years of marriage, Vincent was suddenly making financial decisions alone for the first time since his 20s. This created what researchers term decision fatigue, a psychological state where the mental energy required for routine choices becomes overwhelming. Dr. Sarah Chen at the University of Wisconsin's Center for Elder Security studies this exact phenomenon. Her research shows that widowed seniors experience a measurable decline in financial decision-making confidence within 6 months of their spouse's death, making them more likely to defer to family members who offer assistance. Vincent fit this pattern precisely. But it wasn't just grief affecting Vincent's judgment. The social isolation that followed Maria's death created another vulnerability factor. Vincent had been part of a couple for over 4 decades. His social identity, his daily routines, even his relationship with extended family had been filtered through his partnership with Maria. Suddenly, he was navigating family relationships as a single person, which made him more dependent on individual family members for emotional connection. This is where Damien's psychology becomes crucial to understand. Damien wasn't a random opportunist who stumbled into crime. His financial desperation following his divorce had created what criminal psychologists call motivation pressure, a psychological state where illegal solutions begin to seem reasonable or even justified. Damien's divorce had cost him his house, half his retirement savings, and his sense of financial security. At 45, he was living in a rented apartment, struggling with credit card debt, and watching his peers advance in careers while his own professional life stagnated. This created a psychological environment where Vincent's $3,200 monthly pension appeared as a solution to Damien's problems, rather than theft from a family member. But here's what makes family financial predators particularly dangerous. They don't see themselves as criminals. Damien's psychology evolved through a series of rationalizations that allowed him to maintain his self-image as a caring nephew while systematically stealing from Vincent. The rationalization process follows predictable stages. First, I deserve compensation for my help. Damien genuinely was providing assistance to Vincent, and he began to calculate a monetary value for his time and effort. Second, Uncle Vinny has more money than he needs. Damien convinced himself that Vincent's simple lifestyle meant the pension money was excessive. Third, I'm protecting him from himself. As Vincent aged, Damien interpreted normal elderly moments of confusion as evidence that Vincent couldn't manage his finances independently. These rationalizations are dangerous because they allow family financial predators to escalate their crimes while maintaining their psychological equilibrium. They're not stealing, they're helping. They're not defrauding, they're managing. This self-deception makes family financial abuse particularly insidious because the perpetrator often believes their own justifications. The broader Torres family dynamics created additional opportunities for Damien's operation. Vincent's adult children lived busy lives in different cities. His daughter Alexandra lived 2 hours away in Madison, managing her own career and family responsibilities. His son Michael had moved to Denver for work. Both children maintained regular phone contact with Vincent, but neither had systems in place for monitoring his day-to-day financial activities. This created what security experts call distributed responsibility, a situation where multiple people assume someone else is handling oversight. Alexandra assumed Michael was staying informed about Vincent's finances. Michael assumed Alexandra, being geographically closer, was maintaining awareness of their father's situation. Neither realized that Damien was systematically inserting himself into the communication gaps. Vincent's sister Margaret, Damien's mother, played an unintentionally crucial role in enabling her son's crimes. Margaret lived in the same city as Vincent and Damien, but she wasn't involved in Vincent's daily life. When Damien began reporting concerns about Vincent's memory and decision-making abilities, Margaret accepted these reports at face value and even praised her son for stepping up to help his uncle. This family dynamic is extremely common in elder financial abuse cases. The perpetrator positions themselves as the responsible, caring family member who's willing to help while subtly undermining the elderly person's reputation for competence. Other family members, grateful that someone is providing assistance, don't question the increasing control that the perpetrator assumes. But there were warning signs that the Torres family missed, signs that you can learn to recognize in your own family dynamics. The first warning sign was velocity. How quickly Damien inserted himself into Vincent's financial routines. Within 2 months of beginning regular visits, Damien had progressed from bringing groceries to balancing checkbooks to handling bank communications. This rapid escalation should have triggered family concern, but it was presented so helpfully that no one questioned the progression. The second warning sign was information control. By May 2023, just 2 months into his campaign, Damien had convinced Vincent to change banking information for efficiency. When family members asked Vincent about these changes, his explanations were vague, and he would defer to Damien for details. This pattern, where the elderly person becomes unable to explain their own financial arrangements, is a classic indicator of manipulation. The third warning sign was isolation messaging. Damien began expressing concern about Vincent's cognitive abilities to other family members, but he couched these concerns in language that made him appear protective rather than manipulative. "I'm worried about Uncle Vinny's memory," he would say. "Yesterday he seemed confused about his bills." These statements served multiple purposes. They positioned Damien as observant and caring. They undermined confidence in Vincent's independence, and they created justification for Damien's increasing involvement. The fourth warning sign was communication pattern changes. Vincent, who had always been direct and clear in family communications, began deferring questions about finances to Damien. When Alexandra called to check on her father's well-being, Vincent would say things like, "Oh, Damien handles all that now," or "You'll have to ask Damien about the bank stuff." This communication shift indicated that Vincent was no longer maintaining independent awareness of his own financial situation. The psychological manipulation that Damien employed against Vincent follows patterns that researchers call dependency grooming. This process systematically undermines the elderly person's confidence in their own abilities while making them increasingly reliant on the perpetrator for basic decision-making. Dependency grooming begins with genuine helpfulness. Damien's early assistance with groceries and household tasks created real value for Vincent and established Damien's identity as a helpful family member. But this helpful phase is designed to create gratitude and obligation, emotional states that make the elderly person reluctant to question or refuse later requests. The second phase involves competence undermining. Damien began subtly questioning Vincent's abilities. "Are you sure you paid that bill, Uncle Vinny? Let me check for you. This bank statement looks confusing. Let me help you figure it out." These interventions were presented as helpful, but they systematically eroded Vincent's confidence in his own cognitive abilities. The third phase introduces control as protection. When Vincent expressed uncertainty about financial tasks that he'd been handling independently for decades, Damien would step in with solutions. "Don't worry about it, Uncle Vinny. I'll take care of that for you." This created a psychological dynamic where Vincent experienced relief from decision-making burden while becoming dependent on Damien for financial management. This dependency grooming process is particularly effective against elderly individuals because it exploits natural aging concerns. Most seniors experience occasional moments of confusion or memory lapses, normal aspects of aging that don't indicate serious cognitive decline. But dependency groomers like Damien magnify these normal experiences into evidence of incompetence, creating anxiety that makes the elderly person grateful for assistance. The final element that made Vincent vulnerable was what psychologists call trust persistence. Vincent had known Damien since Damien was a child. He had positive memories of helping Damien through difficult times, had watched him grow up, had celebrated his achievements, and supported him through failures. This decades-long relationship created a foundation of trust that Vincent found almost impossible to question, even when evidence of betrayal became obvious. Trust persistence is why family financial abuse is so devastating. The elderly victim's entire psychological framework resists accepting that someone they love could deliberately harm them. This resistance allows the abuse to continue far longer than would be possible with stranger perpetrators, and it creates lasting emotional damage that extends far beyond the financial loss. Understanding these psychological dynamics is crucial for families seeking to protect elderly members. Vincent Torres wasn't naive or foolish. He was experiencing normal human responses to manipulation by someone he had every reason to trust. The warning signs were subtle and presented gradually, making them easy for busy family members to miss. But now that we understand the psychological foundation of Damien's operation, we can examine how he translated that manipulation into systematic theft of over $85,000. The crime itself followed a carefully orchestrated progression that turned Vincent's trust into Damien's opportunity for financial gain. Now we enter the criminal heart of case file 047. Damien Reeves didn't stumble into stealing $85,400 from his uncle. He orchestrated a sophisticated four-phase operation that demonstrates why family financial predators are often more dangerous than stranger scammers. Let's examine each phase of this systematic theft with the precision of a forensic investigation. Damien's criminal operation began with what appeared to be genuine family care. In March 2023, roughly 1 year after Maria's death, Damien started visiting Vincent twice weekly. These weren't brief social calls. They were structured assistance visits, where Damien would bring groceries, help with household tasks, and spend several hours providing companionship. But here's what makes this phase criminal rather than familial. Damien was conducting intelligence gathering. During these visits, he was systematically learning about Vincent's financial routines, his banking relationships, his bill-paying patterns, and most importantly, his areas of confusion or difficulty. Criminal psychologists call this lifestyle infiltration. Damien wasn't just helping, he was positioning himself as indispensable to Vincent's daily functioning. Within 6 weeks, Vincent had become accustomed to Damien's assistance and had begun to depend on it emotionally and practically. The financial integration began in April, with seemingly innocent offers to help balance Vincent's checkbook. "These bank statements are getting so complicated," Vincent had mentioned during one visit. Damien immediately positioned himself as the solution. "Let me help you organize this, Uncle Vinny. I'm good with numbers." This moment represents a crucial escalation in family financial abuse cases. The perpetrator transitions from external helper to internal financial participant. Once Damien had access to Vincent's bank statements, account numbers, and spending patterns, he possessed the information necessary to commit financial fraud. But Damien was more sophisticated than typical family financial predators. Instead of immediately exploiting his access, he used this phase to identify vulnerabilities in Vincent's financial security systems. He learned that Vincent rarely checked his accounts online, that monthly statements often sat unopened for days, and that Vincent had limited understanding of modern banking security protocols. The first concrete criminal act occurred in May 2023 during a family barbecue. Vincent mentioned casually to other family members that Damien had helped him update some banking information to make his pension deposits more efficient. When pressed for details, Vincent's explanation was vague. He mentioned something about direct deposit improvements, but couldn't explain specifically what had changed. Here's what actually happened. Damien had convinced Vincent to provide his online banking credentials under the pretense of helping him set up more convenient account access. Using these credentials, Damien had explored Vincent's account structure, learned about his pension deposit schedule, and identified opportunities for financial manipulation. If this case analysis is opening your eyes to how family financial predators operate, hit that like button right now. It helps me reach more families who need this protection education, and we're just getting started with Damien's systematic theft operation. Phase 2 represents the most psychologically sophisticated aspect of Damien's operation. Having established financial access, he now needed to prevent other family members from detecting his planned theft. This required systematic information control and gradual family isolation. The mail forwarding scheme exemplifies Damien's criminal sophistication. In June, he convinced Vincent that neighborhood mail theft was increasing and that having mail forwarded to a P.O. box would provide better security. This seemingly protective measure actually allowed Damien to screen all of Vincent's financial correspondence before Vincent saw it. This information control served multiple criminal purposes. First, it prevented Vincent from receiving bank statements that might reveal unauthorized activity. Second, it allowed Damien to intercept communications from pension administrators or financial institutions. Third, it created a communication barrier between Vincent and his financial service providers. The phone number change was even more strategically criminal. Damien convinced Vincent that changing his phone number would reduce telemarketer calls and improve his privacy. But the real purpose was to disrupt direct communication between Vincent and his financial institutions, while positioning Damien as the primary contact for pension and banking communications. Here's how this phone strategy worked. When financial institutions called Vincent's old number, they received a disconnect message. When they needed to verify account changes or confirm transactions, they would use the backup contact information, which Damien had systematically updated to his own phone number during his helpful banking assistance visits. This created a criminal communication loop where Damien could authorize changes to Vincent's accounts by impersonating Vincent during phone verifications, while Vincent remained unaware that these communications were occurring. The family isolation component was psychologically brilliant and morally devastating. Damien began expressing concern about Vincent's cognitive abilities to other family members, but he framed these concerns as protective rather than manipulative. "I'm worried about Uncle Vinny," he would tell his mother Margaret. Yesterday, he couldn't remember if he'd paid his electric bill, and last week he got confused about his medication schedule. These statements served multiple criminal purposes. They positioned Damien as observant and caring, they undermined family confidence in Vincent's independence, and they created justification for Damien's increasing financial control. But here's the criminal sophistication. Damien was likely creating some of the confusion he was reporting. By handling Vincent's bill paying and then asking if Vincent remembered paying specific bills, Damien could create genuine uncertainty in Vincent's mind. By organizing Vincent's medications and then testing his memory of the organization system, Damien could create evidence of cognitive decline that existed only because Vincent was no longer managing these tasks independently. This manipulation technique is called gaslighting, deliberately creating confusion in the victim's mind to undermine their confidence in their own perceptions and memory. In elder financial abuse cases, gaslighting serves to justify the perpetrator's increasing control while making the victim grateful for assistance. August 2023 represents the criminal turning point where Damien transitioned from preparation to active theft capability. The power of attorney signing was the centerpiece of this phase, and examining the circumstances reveals criminal fraud at multiple levels. A legitimate power of attorney is a legal document that allows one person to act on behalf of another under specific circumstances. It's designed to protect elderly individuals by ensuring that trusted family members can handle their affairs if they become incapacitated. But in family financial abuse cases, power of attorney documents become weapons for systematic theft. Damien's approach to securing power of attorney authority demonstrates premeditation and criminal sophistication. He didn't present the document during a calm moment when Vincent could consider it carefully. Instead, he waited for a Tuesday afternoon when Vincent was tired and overwhelmed from what Damien described as a banking error that had frustrated Vincent all morning. Criminal psychology research shows that decision-making quality deteriorates significantly when individuals are stressed, tired, or emotionally overwhelmed. By presenting the power of attorney document during Vincent's moment of vulnerability, Damien was exploiting psychological manipulation to secure legal authority. But the real criminality lies in Damien's misrepresentation of the document's scope and immediate implications. "This just gives me the ability to help you if something happens," Damien explained, positioning the POA as purely precautionary rather than actively operational. This representation was deliberately false. Damien fully intended to use the power of attorney immediately and extensively. Within 2 weeks of Vincent's signature, Damien had used his new legal authority to add himself as an authorized user on Vincent's primary checking account, open a new savings account with himself as beneficiary, change contact information on Vincent's accounts to his own phone number and address, initiate the process of redirecting Vincent's pension direct deposits. Each of these actions represented a separate criminal fraud. Damien was using his power of attorney authority to serve his own financial interests rather than Vincent's welfare, a clear violation of his fiduciary duty and a criminal abuse of legal authority. The new account creation was particularly sophisticated. Rather than simply stealing from Vincent's existing accounts, Damien created a parallel financial system where Vincent's pension money would flow through accounts that Damien controlled. This approach allowed Damien to maintain the appearance of Vincent's financial stability while systematically siphoning funds for his own use. September 2023 marked the beginning of active, systematic theft. Damien's criminal operation now entered its most financially damaging phase, the monthly diversion of pension payments that would ultimately total $85,400. The direct deposit fraud was criminally elegant in its simplicity. Using his power of attorney authority, Damien contacted the Milwaukee Public School District pension administrator and requested that Vincent's monthly $3,200 payments be redirected from Vincent's longtime bank account to the new account that Damien controlled. This type of direct deposit fraud exploits a vulnerability in pension administration systems. Most pension funds rely on power of attorney documents as sufficient authorization for changing payment information without requiring additional verification from the beneficiary. This administrative streamlining, designed to help families manage elderly relatives' finances, created an opportunity that Damien exploited for criminal purposes. But here's what made Damien's theft operation particularly insidious. He didn't steal the entire pension payment each month. Instead, he would transfer varying amounts, typically between $1,800 and $2,400, back to Vincent's original checking account, keeping the remainder for himself. This partial payment strategy served multiple criminal purposes. First, Vincent's bills continued to be paid, preventing the financial distress that might trigger family investigation. Second, Vincent maintained enough spending money for groceries and basic needs, avoiding the lifestyle changes that might indicate financial problems. Third, the varying transfer amounts made it difficult to detect a pattern of systematic theft. The amounts Damien kept for himself ranged from $800 to $1,400 monthly, substantial theft that totaled over $5,000 every 4 months, but not so dramatic as to immediately bankrupt Vincent or trigger obvious crisis. Damien's cover story evolution shows his criminal sophistication. When Vincent occasionally questioned why his account balances seemed lower than expected, Damien had prepared explanations. Bank fees had increased, Medicare deductions had changed, utilities were more expensive, or there had been timing delays in deposit processing. These explanations were designed to create doubt rather than clarity. Instead of providing specific information that Vincent could verify, Damien offered vague financial concepts that would make Vincent feel foolish for not understanding modern banking complexities. The banking interaction control was the final element that made Damien's theft sustainable. He convinced Vincent that in-person bank visits were unnecessary and potentially dangerous, first because of flu season, later because of general safety concerns about elderly people carrying cash or financial information. Instead of transparent banking relationships, Damien provided Vincent with handwritten account summaries that showed balances consistent with Vincent's expectations. These fake summaries allowed Damien to maintain Vincent's illusion of financial stability while systematically draining his pension. Over 16 months, this systematic theft operation diverted $85,400 from Vincent's pension into Damien's control. But the crime might have continued indefinitely if not for an external crisis that exposed Damien's fraud to family scrutiny. The criminal sophistication of Damien's operation demonstrates why family financial predators are often more successful than stranger scammers. Damien had legitimate access, legal authority, family trust, and systematic control over information flow. He exploited institutional vulnerabilities in pension administration and banking systems while maintaining the appearance of helpful family care. But every criminal operation contains the seeds of its own discovery. And for Damien Reeves, that discovery would come through the very medical emergency he should have been protecting Vincent's resources to handle. January 2024 brought the medical emergency that would expose 16 months of systematic theft and forever change the Torres family. At 2:30 a.m. on a cold Milwaukee Tuesday, Vincent Torres experienced severe chest pains that sent him to the emergency room and ultimately revealed the $85,400 fraud that his nephew had been orchestrating. Vincent's cardiac episode required immediate medical attention and extensive testing. The emergency room physicians determined that he needed cardiac procedures that would require several weeks of recovery and potentially extended care facility placement. For Vincent's family, this medical crisis created an urgent need to access his financial resources to cover medical expenses not covered by insurance. Vincent's daughter Alexandra took emergency leave from her job in Madison and rushed to Milwaukee to coordinate her father's care. As the geographically closest family member and Vincent's designated healthcare power of attorney, Alexandra was responsible for handling the financial aspects of Vincent's medical treatment. This is where Damien's careful criminal operation collided with reality. When Alexandra attempted to access Vincent's checking account to pay for medical expenses, she discovered a balance of only $847, dramatically less than the $8,000 to $10,000 that Vincent typically maintained as his financial safety buffer. Alexandra's initial reaction demonstrates how effective Damien's manipulation had been. Her first assumption was that this was a temporary cash flow issue, perhaps related to the timing of Vincent's pension deposit, or an unusual medical expense that Vincent had paid recently. The possibility of systematic theft didn't immediately occur to her because Damien had successfully positioned himself as Vincent's financial protector. But when Alexandra called the Milwaukee Public School District pension administrator to verify payment schedules and ensure that Vincent's hospitalization wouldn't affect his pension processing, she learned information that instantly revealed the scope of Damien's betrayal. Mr. Torres's pension payments have been processing normally, the administrator explained. All deposits since September have been going to the account ending in 4792, as requested by the account holder Damien Reeves, using power of attorney authorization. This moment represents the point where Damien's criminal operation was exposed. Alexandra had never heard of an account ending in 4792, and she knew that Vincent had been banking with the same institution for over 20 years. The revelation that Damien had redirected Vincent's pension using power of attorney authority immediately indicated fraud. Alexandra's investigation into her father's finances follows the methodology that families should use when they suspect elder financial abuse. Her systematic approach to uncovering the theft provides a template that other families can follow if they find themselves in similar circumstances. The first step was complete bank record analysis. That afternoon, Alexandra drove to Vincent's longtime bank and requested a full account history dating back 12 months. As Vincent's healthcare power of attorney and emergency contact, she had legal authority to access these records during his medical incapacitation. The bank statements revealed a clear pattern that demonstrated systematic theft. Regular pension deposits of $3,200 had stopped in September 2023, replaced by irregular transfers from an unknown account. The transfer amounts varied between $1,800 and $2,400, but they were consistently lower than Vincent's actual pension payments. This pattern analysis immediately indicated fraudulent activity. Vincent's pension payments were fixed monthly amounts, so the irregular transfer amounts suggested that someone was intercepting the full pension and returning only partial amounts to Vincent's account. The second step was identifying the intercepting account. Using Vincent's power of attorney documents, which Alexandra found in Damien's handwriting in Vincent's filing cabinet, she was able to access information about the account receiving Vincent's pension payments. The account statements revealed the full scope of Damien's theft operation. Between September 2023 and January 2024, over $28,600 had been diverted from Vincent's pension into an account that Damien controlled. This money should have been available for Vincent's medical care, but instead it had been funding Damien's lifestyle and debt payments. But the investigation revealed that the theft was larger than the pension diversion alone. Further analysis of Vincent's original account history showed numerous cash withdrawals and transfers that Vincent couldn't account for, dating back to earlier in 2023. These additional thefts added another $31,000 to the total fraud amount. The complete picture showed systematic theft totaling $80,400 over 16 months, money that Damien had stolen through a combination of pension diversion, unauthorized account access, and abuse of his power of attorney authority. Armed with comprehensive financial evidence, Alexandra confronted Damien with documentation of his crimes. His response followed a predictable pattern that criminal psychologists call the fraud response cycle, a series of defensive strategies that family financial predators typically employ when exposed. Phase 1 was complete denial. "I don't know what you're talking about," Damien insisted. "I've been helping Uncle Vinny organize his finances, but I haven't taken any money." This initial denial strategy attempts to create doubt about the evidence and force the accuser to prove criminal intent rather than simply documenting financial discrepancies. When Alexandra presented specific transaction records showing pension diversions and unauthorized withdrawals, Damien shifted to phase 2, minimization and justification. "I was just trying to help him manage his money better," he claimed. "The new account was more secure, and I was going to explain the whole system to him when he was feeling better." This justification strategy is particularly common in family financial abuse cases because it exploits the relationship between perpetrator and victim. Damien was attempting to reframe his criminal activity as misguided helpfulness rather than deliberate theft. Phase 3 emerged when the evidence became overwhelming: entitlement rationalization. "I deserved compensation for all the care I provided," Damien argued. "I spent dozens of hours helping Uncle Vinny, and I never asked for payment. The money I took was fair payment for my time." This entitlement defense reveals the psychological mechanism that allows family financial predators to commit crimes against relatives they claim to love. Damien had convinced himself that his assistance created a debt that Vincent owed him, and that he was entitled to collect this debt without Vincent's knowledge or consent. The final phase was victim blaming and family manipulation. "You all were too busy with your own lives to notice how much Uncle Vinny was struggling," Damien accused. "I was the only one who cared enough to help him, and now you're trying to make me into a criminal for being responsible." This manipulation strategy attempts to create guilt and division among family members while positioning the perpetrator as the victim of family ingratitude. It's designed to shift focus from the criminal behavior to family dynamics and shared responsibility. Alexandra's response to Damien's confrontation demonstrates the importance of maintaining focus on documentation rather than emotional reactions during family financial crime investigations. Instead of engaging with Damien's manipulation tactics, she concentrated on gathering evidence that would support criminal prosecution. The evidence collection process required coordination with multiple financial institutions, pension administrators, and legal authorities. Alexandra needed to document not only the theft itself, but also the fraudulent methods that Damien had used to gain access to Vincent's finances. The power of attorney document analysis revealed that Damien had misrepresented the scope and purpose of the legal authority he was requesting. His explanation to Vincent that the POA was purely precautionary contradicted his immediate and extensive use of that authority to redirect pension payments and control financial communications. The timeline reconstruction showed premeditation and systematic planning. Damien's progression from helpful family member to financial controller to active thief followed a clear pattern that demonstrated criminal intent rather than gradual boundary confusion. Most importantly, the financial impact documentation showed that Damien's theft had created genuine hardship for Vincent. The stolen money represented not just past financial loss, but future financial insecurity, particularly given Vincent's ongoing medical needs and limited remaining resources. This comprehensive evidence package provided the foundation for criminal prosecution and civil restitution efforts. But as we'll see in the next section, the legal response to family financial crimes involves complexities that extend far beyond simple theft cases. The discovery phase of case file number 47 demonstrates why early detection is crucial in family financial abuse cases. The longer these crimes continue, the more sophisticated the perpetrator's cover-up becomes, and the more financial damage accumulates. But it also shows that careful investigation can uncover even sophisticated fraud schemes when family members know what evidence to gather and how to document criminal activity systematically. The path from discovery to justice in elder financial abuse cases requires navigating multiple legal systems designed to protect elderly victims while ensuring due process for accused family members. The Torres case provides a compelling example of how these legal proceedings unfold and why the outcomes often fall short of complete justice for victims. Within 24 hours of documenting Damien's theft, Alexandra filed reports with both the Milwaukee Police Department's Elder Abuse Unit and Wisconsin Adult Protective Services. This dual reporting strategy is crucial in elder financial abuse cases because it triggers both criminal investigation and protective services intervention. the Milwaukee Police Elder Abuse Unit assigned Detective Sarah Martinez to investigate the case. Detective Martinez's experience with family financial crimes proved crucial because these cases require different investigative approaches than stranger perpetrator crimes. Family financial abuse involves ongoing relationships, legitimate access that becomes criminal misuse, and complex emotional dynamics that affect victim cooperation. Detective Martinez's investigation followed established protocols for elder financial exploitation cases. The first priority was victim safety assessment. Was Vincent in immediate danger? Did Damien pose ongoing threats? Were there other elderly family members who might be vulnerable to similar abuse? The second priority was evidence preservation. Financial records, power of attorney documents, and communication records needed to be secured before Damien could destroy or alter evidence. Detective Martinez worked with prosecutors to obtain search warrants for Damien's residence and financial accounts. Adult Protective Services conducted a parallel investigation focused on Vincent's welfare and protection needs. APS caseworker Jennifer Walsh assessed Vincent's current safety, his capacity to make decisions about prosecution, and his need for ongoing protective services. This dual investigation approach, law enforcement focusing on criminal prosecution and APS focusing on victim protection, is designed to serve the complex needs of elder abuse victims who may need ongoing support beyond criminal justice outcomes. The Torres case illustrates several challenges that complicate the prosecution of family financial crimes. The first challenge is victim cooperation. Vincent's initial reaction to learning about Damien's theft was disbelief and defensiveness. He was just trying to help, Vincent insisted during his first police interview. Maybe there's been some kind of mistake. This victim response is extremely common in family financial abuse cases. The psychological manipulation that enables the crime also makes victims reluctant to believe that their abuser deliberately harmed them. Vincent had been conditioned to view Damien as his protector, making it difficult for him to accept evidence of Damien's betrayal. The second challenge is the complexity of financial evidence. Family financial abuse often involves legitimate assistance that gradually becomes criminal exploitation. Prosecutors must prove criminal intent, that Damien deliberately deceived Vincent rather than simply mismanaging his finances or making poor decisions with good intentions. The third challenge is the emotional impact on families. Criminal prosecution of family members creates additional trauma for victims and splits families between those who support prosecution and those who want to handle it privately. Margaret Reeves, Damien's mother, initially opposed criminal charges and advocated for family-based resolution. Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office evaluated the Torres case under Wisconsin Statute 942.285, financial exploitation of an elderly person. This statute makes it a Class H felony to intentionally take advantage of an elderly person's physical or mental infirmity or age to obtain their property for personal use. Prosecutor Lisa Chen determined that the evidence met the statutory requirements for felony prosecution. The case involved an elderly victim. Vincent was 78 years old. Financial exploitation exceeding $10,000. Total loss of $85,400. Use of position of trust to commit the crime. Family relationship and POA authority. Intent to permanently deprive the victim of property. Damien's personal use of stolen funds. The specific charges filed against Damien included felony financial exploitation of an elderly person, Class H felony, theft of more than $10,000, Class G felony, fraud in connection with power of attorney, Class H felony, identity theft for financial gain, Class H felony. Each charge carried potential prison sentences ranging from 3 to 6 years, with the possibility of consecutive sentencing that could total over 20 years imprisonment. Facing overwhelming evidence and potential decades in prison, Damien's defense attorney advised plea negotiations. The strength of the financial evidence, clear documentation of pension diversion, unauthorized account access, and systematic theft made conviction at trial virtually certain. Damien's defense strategy focused on securing a plea agreement that would minimize his prison sentence while ensuring complete restitution to Vincent. Defense attorney Michael O'Brien argued that Damien's cooperation and acceptance of responsibility should result in a sentence focused on financial restoration rather than punitive imprisonment. The plea negotiations revealed additional information about Damien's crimes. In exchange for a reduced sentence, Damien provided complete financial records showing how he had used the stolen money. The $85,400 had been spent on credit card debt payments, $31,200, apartment rent and living expenses, $28,800, car payments and maintenance, $15,600, personal entertainment and dining, $9,800. This spending pattern showed that Damien had used Vincent's pension money to maintain his lifestyle while avoiding bankruptcy following his divorce. The systematic nature of the spending demonstrated that the theft was planned and deliberate rather than impulsive or emergency-driven. Damien ultimately pled guilty to felony financial exploitation of an elderly person and agreed to make full restitution of $85,400. In exchange, the other charges were dismissed, and the prosecution recommended a sentence at the lower end of the statutory range. Judge Patricia Williams sentenced Damien to 4 years in state prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. The sentence included several specific conditions designed to protect future elderly victims: complete prohibition on serving as power of attorney for any elderly person, mandatory financial literacy and elder abuse education programs, full restitution to Vincent in monthly payments over 10 years, no unsupervised contact with elderly relatives. Judge Williams specifically addressed the breach of family trust in her sentencing remarks. Mr. Reeves exploited the most fundamental relationship of care and protection. His crimes strike at the heart of family security and elderly dignity. While financial restitution can address the monetary loss, the breach of trust creates lasting damage that no sentence can fully repair. If you're watching this case analysis because you want to protect your elderly parents or family members from this exact type of betrayal, please share this video with anyone managing family finances. Knowledge is the best protection against family financial predators, and sharing this education could save another family from experiencing what the Torres family endured. The restitution order of $85,400 represented complete financial restoration in legal terms, but the practical reality of collecting restitution from family financial abuse perpetrators is far more complex. Damien's financial condition at sentencing showed why restitution orders often remain unfulfilled. Damien had no significant assets, no steady employment, and substantial additional debts. His ability to make meaningful restitution payments was limited to whatever income he could generate during his probation period. The monthly restitution payments were set at $475, an amount that would require nearly 15 years to complete full repayment, assuming consistent employment and no other financial obligations. Vincent's age and health condition made this timeline particularly problematic. At 78 years old, with ongoing cardiac issues, Vincent was unlikely to live long enough to receive complete restitution, even if Damien made every required payment. This reality gap between legal justice and practical restoration is common in elder financial abuse cases. The Torres case contributed to several legal precedent developments in Wisconsin elder abuse law. The prosecution's success in proving criminal intent through financial pattern analysis provided a template for future family financial abuse prosecutions. The case also highlighted system vulnerabilities that enabled Damien's crimes. The pension administration's acceptance of power of attorney authority without additional verification allowed the initial direct deposit fraud. Banking institutions' limited monitoring of elderly account activity failed to detect the systematic theft pattern. These system failures prompted policy discussions about improved protections for elderly financial accounts, enhanced verification requirements for power of attorney document usage, and better coordination between financial institutions and adult protective services. However, implementing these protections requires balancing elderly autonomy with security, a challenge that continues to complicate elder financial abuse prevention efforts. The legal resolution of Case File Number 47 demonstrates both the possibilities and limitations of criminal justice responses to family financial crimes. While Damien faced significant legal consequences for his betrayal, the lasting damage to family relationships and Vincent's financial security extended far beyond what any legal remedy could address. This reality makes prevention education crucial. Understanding how these crimes develop and recognizing warning signs before theft occurs provides far better protection than legal remedies after the damage is done. After analyzing how Damien Reeves systematically stole $85,400 from his uncle through sophisticated psychological manipulation and legal document abuse, we arrive at the most crucial section of our investigation. How do you protect your family from experiencing this devastating betrayal? The Torres case provides a perfect template for understanding both vulnerability factors and protection strategies because it demonstrates how ordinary family circumstances can create opportunities for extraordinary financial crimes. By implementing the 3 legal protection strategies I'm about to share, you can create safeguards that would have prevented Damien's entire operation. The single most effective protection against family financial abuse is implementing what I call financial checks and balances. A system where no individual family member can gain complete control over an elderly person's finances, even with legitimate authority. Here's how this system works in practice. Instead of granting power of attorney authority to one family member, you establish a structure requiring multiple approvals for significant financial decisions. This can be accomplished through several legal mechanisms. Dual power of attorney requirements. Rather than designating one person as financial power of attorney, you designate 2 family members who must act jointly for any transaction exceeding a predetermined threshold, typically $1,000 to $2,500, depending on the family's financial situation. This dual authority requirement would have prevented Damien's crimes entirely. When he attempted to redirect Vincent's pension payments, he would have needed approval from a second family member who could question the purpose and necessity of the change. Financial institution notification protocols work with banks and pension administrators to establish multi-contact verification requirements. This means that any change to account information, direct deposit arrangements, or authorized users must be confirmed with at least 2 designated family members before implementation. Most financial institutions will accommodate these enhanced security protocols when families request them proactively. The key is establishing these protections before they're needed, when the elderly person can participate in creating the system and understands its protective purpose. Monthly statement distribution systems. Establish automatic distribution of all financial statements to multiple family members simultaneously. This creates transparency that prevents information control tactics like Damien's mail forwarding scheme. Modern banking allows electronic statement distribution to multiple email addresses, making this protection simple to implement. When all designated family members receive the same financial information simultaneously, schemes involving fake account summaries or intercepted communications become impossible. Independent verification requirements. For any significant financial decision, such as changing direct deposit information, opening new accounts, or altering beneficiary designations, require independent verification through a trusted third party, such as a family attorney or financial advisor. This verification step creates a pause in the decision-making process that allows for careful consideration and prevents impulsive or manipulated decisions during vulnerable moments. Damien's success depended heavily on controlling information flow between Vincent and his financial institutions. The second protection strategy focuses on maintaining secure, direct communication channels that cannot be intercepted or manipulated by potential perpetrators. Direct financial institution contact maintenance. Elderly family members should maintain primary contact relationships with their banks, pension administrators, and financial service providers. This means keeping personal phone numbers current, maintaining email access, and insisting on direct communication for verification purposes. Families should be suspicious of any situation where one person becomes the sole communication channel between an elderly family member and their financial institutions. This concentration of communication control was a crucial element in Damien's ability to maintain his fraud for 16 months. Secure mail and communication protocols. Never allow mail forwarding to addresses controlled by single family members, even temporarily. If mail security is a concern, establish systems where multiple family members share access to mail monitoring, or use secure mail services that provide electronic copies to multiple recipients. For families concerned about elderly relatives handling financial communications independently, establish support systems rather than replacement systems. Help the elderly person manage their communications rather than taking over communications entirely. Digital access management. If elderly family members use online banking or financial management tools, ensure that login credentials are shared with multiple trusted family members and stored securely. This prevents situations where one person gains exclusive digital access to financial accounts. However, digital access sharing must be balanced with security concerns. Use secure password management systems and establish clear protocols for who can access accounts under what circumstances. Regular financial communication schedules. Implement scheduled family conversations about financial matters that occur monthly or quarterly. These conversations should include review of account balances, discussion of any changes to financial arrangements, and confirmation that the elderly person understands and approves of their current financial management. These regular check-ins create opportunities to detect manipulation or confusion before they result in significant financial loss. They also maintain family engagement in financial oversight, even when day-to-day management assistance is provided by one family member. The third protection strategy focuses on creating systems that can detect financial abuse in its early stages before systematic theft can cause significant damage. Early detection requires both monitoring systems and family education about warning signs. Behavioral change monitoring. Establish baseline understanding of the elderly person's normal financial behaviors, decision-making patterns, and communication styles. Any significant changes in these patterns should trigger increased family attention and investigation. Warning signs include reluctance to discuss financial matters, confusion about account balances or recent transactions, changes in spending patterns, new financial arrangements that the elderly person cannot clearly explain, and increased dependence on one family member for financial information. Financial pattern analysis. Implement regular review of financial statements by multiple family members trained to recognize signs of exploitation. This includes monitoring for unusual cash withdrawals, new account openings, changes to direct deposit or automatic payment arrangements, irregular transaction patterns, and balances that don't match expected pension or investment income. Modern technology makes pattern analysis easier than ever. Many banks offer account monitoring services that can alert multiple family members to unusual activity automatically. Third-party professional oversight. Consider engaging professional financial advisors, elder law attorneys, or certified public accountants to provide independent oversight of elderly family members' finances. Professional oversight adds an additional layer of protection against family-based financial abuse because professionals have ethical obligations to protect their clients' interests and are trained to recognize signs of exploitation. Professional oversight is particularly valuable for families where geographic distance makes regular monitoring difficult or where family relationships are complicated by existing conflicts. Emergency response protocols. Develop clear family protocols for responding to suspected financial abuse. This includes immediate steps to secure accounts and prevent additional losses, documentation requirements for potential legal action, coordination with law enforcement and adult protective services, and communication strategies to support the elderly victim while investigating suspected abuse. Having response protocols established before they're needed prevents the confusion and delay that can allow financial abuse to continue while families decide how to respond. Implementing these protection strategies requires careful planning and family communication. The goal is creating security without undermining the elderly person's autonomy or dignity. Here's how to approach implementation. Start with family education. Before implementing specific protections, educate all family members about financial abuse risks and warning signs. This education creates buy-in for protective measures and helps everyone understand why these safeguards are necessary. Include the elderly person in planning. Whenever possible, involve elderly family members in designing their own protection systems. This maintains their sense of control and ensures that protections enhance rather than replace their decision-making authority. Begin with simple measures. Start with basic protections like statement distribution and regular family financial discussions before implementing more complex measures like dual power of attorney requirements. Gradual implementation allows families to adjust to new systems and identify what works best for their specific circumstances. Document all protections. Create written records of all protection systems, including who has what authority, what verification requirements exist, and how family members can access information. This documentation prevents confusion and ensures that protections remain effective even if circumstances change. Review and update regularly. Financial protection systems need regular review and updating as family circumstances change, technology evolves, and elderly family members' needs shift over time. The Vincent Torres case demonstrates that family financial abuse can happen to any family, regardless of education, social status, or good intentions. But it also shows that understanding these crimes and implementing appropriate protections can prevent devastating financial and emotional damage. Your elderly parents or grandparents don't have to become victims of family financial betrayal. The warning signs are recognizable, the protection strategies are implementable, and the legal resources exist to prevent these crimes when families take proactive steps. Before we close case file number 047, I want you to take action right now. Subscribe to Family Wealth Detective for more case analysis that could protect your family from financial predators. Ring the notification bell so you don't miss new investigations. And tell me in the comments, which of these 3 protection strategies will you implement first in your family? Because education without action is just entertainment, and your family's financial security is too important for entertainment. Share this case study with anyone who has elderly parents or manages family finances. The knowledge you share today could prevent the heartbreak that Vincent Torres and his family experienced. Case file number 47 is now closed, but your family's protection story is just beginning. Make sure it has a better ending than the Torres family's tragedy. Remember, in family financial crime prevention, knowledge is power, vigilance is protection, and early action is everything. Stay safe, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next case investigation.